Welcome to Business Talk Sister Gawk. I'm Becca.
And I'm Ruthie.
And today's episode title is How to Develop an App. And with us today, we have Mark Hartman and Tyreek. And I did not grab your last name, so could you tell us what it is?
Oh, right. No worries at all. Most people don't. It's El Kibalon.
All right.
Yeah, El Kibalon.
I'm kind of thankful I didn't have that in my notes.
Yeah, it's I know, like it kind of it's if this is a word, Sibylic, like it kind of sounds like exactly how it's parsed out, but it's like when you first see it, you panic. I remember it was a headache even as a kid learning how to spell that last name.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for being with us today. We are excited to have you.
All right. Thank you.
So our first question for you guys today is, what do you do?
Okay. All right. So as of myself, I'm the CTO of Alosha, and I typically handle, for the most part, a lot of the technical implementation aspects of the app and website as well. I think most of Alosha, if not all of it, is coded and software by me. And I do a lot of the UI design for the app as well. With a couple of kind of outsourcing things here and there. At the end of the day, at my core, I am an engineer. So some of the more design-ish type things like illustrations and things like that, a lot of gradients I kind of struggle with. But for the most part, I do a lot of the UI design for our branding across the platform.
Okay, so you said a couple different things there. You said like the Alosha, which I'd love for you to explain, and then I think you said that was it the OI design?
Oh, I'm sorry, UI. So
sorry, my bad. Could you explain those?
Yes. So yes, Alosha is it's a music platform that Mark and I co-founded, I think about a couple years ago, to basically help aspiring artists kind of get out there and sell their artwork, their music, their paintings, their sculptures, while in order to earn a profit during the early days of their careers. We saw the potential to help these young and aspiring artists, or new artists for the most part, because a lot of the like the galleries and other places, they take like a significant cut, maybe I think, was it 50% cut commission on the artwork. And at least with Alosha, we only take I think it's 25% commission on the artwork that's sold, and we only get paid when the artists get paid. And so we wanted to be able to build a platform for artists to help get them started in their art career. So that's what Alosha is, and that's the business that Mark and I have started. Now, on the topic of UI design, that right there is called, short UI is user interface, and it's basically creating the layouts for any type of, technically it really is any type of interface you interact with any other type of system. You could even consider your car dashboard a user interface system. But in this case, within Alosha, I designed the user interface of the app, the buttons you press, tap this button, you go to this screen, you go to that screen. I set the colors and things like that. It's basically it's user interface design. It is art, but it's a little bit more of like, art in motion, so to speak, and people, how do you use this picture to get done what you want to get done? That's user interface design, UI design.
Yeah, so it's kind of like practical technological art, which is really cool. Okay, so tell us about your why. You touched a little bit on like that you wanted to have something different than like a gallery for artists, but what was your why behind getting started with this? And Mark, if you want to jump in on this too, you definitely can.
Okay. I mean, because originally we got started, working on it a couple years ago, and it was a contract that Mark wanted to basically build it, and he brought me on as a business partner to get it rolling in the initial launch of the product, and then later on, I kind of seen a little bit of the viability of it from a business perspective, and I joined on as a co-founder. basically having equity in the business, and just contributing my technical expertise. Now, Mark himself is he's actually an artist, full-blown artist. I'm a little bit more on the technical side, so Mark would definitely be able to kind of go into a lot more details on what really drives, the artist, and a lot of the needs he sees that Alosha basically bridging, that the gaps that he sees Alosha bridging for a lot of these aspiring artists.
Yeah, so Mark, go ahead and jump in and tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. The main reason why we have created this application is because struggling musicians, right? So when I was a musician, or I still am, uh, completely full blown, I was spending so much money on trying to get my music out into the world, and I was nothing. I, I was getting nothing back. And so when creative people, for instance, when they put out all the artwork and they create a video and or they create music, they don't get nothing in return. They keep spending money on equipment, they keep spending money on paints, uh, canvases, and things of that nature, but they get nothing in return. My main mission was, why don't we give something for them?
How did you go about building the concept design for the app? And I know some people would call for like a website, I've heard of it as like a wireframe. Like how did you go about saying this is where what needs to go where, and how do all these pieces fit together?
Well, I got it from different applications. For instance, SoundCloud, Spotify, and YouTube, iTunes, and everything like that. They all charge subscriptions. I didn't want subscriptions in the beginning. What I wanted to do was charge like a commission fee. It's not 25%, it's 15%. And I want to make the artist the most vocal out there. Nothing about us, just the artist, him or herself, um, vocally. And the concept was, when I was dreaming about the opportunity that I would want in the world, that I would want. At first, it started selfish. It was all for me, and then I was like, there's so many people could benefit from this instead of just benefiting myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, maybe getting more into like the technical piece of it, because I think that's really cool, like how you were talking about how it relates to iTunes and things like that, and how you were kind of seeing Spotify and the comparison there. So how did you, and maybe this would be more of a question for Tariq, like how did you get into what kind of programming languages are necessary to be an app developer?
I guess in my case, it was a little bit more of with the language I decided to roll with, and the framework that I used to develop the app. I looked at the landscape, and I did look a little bit at like what was currently available for what would work well for Alosha. A couple of the considerations that you have to take, or things you have to take into consideration, is kind of your user audience, the type of features you're trying to implement, and your time to product launch. So there's this concept in app development where we have native apps and we also have hybrid apps. So native app is like an app that is specifically tailor-made for just say your iPhone. It only works on iOS, basically the iPhone, or it only works on Android. Not both. It just only works on Android. Now that's great if you have if your app is feature rich, it uses a lot of things like location services, the health kit on iOS. And I think Google has something similar over on Android. It's escaping me right now. And other types of really device specific features. That's where native app development shines. But it's unfortunate with that because you then have to go and develop the app twice. We saw with Alosha that, a lot of the features were kind of more, standard. It wasn't necessarily feature rich by, We weren't asking for people's locations, their contacts, their health information. All they're really doing is uploading, images of their artwork or, audio files, and, just displaying it and creating a marketplace for artists that basically highlights their content. And with us, the requirements being like that, I was like, well, let's go ahead and create a hybrid app. It won't give us, a lot of that super high powered features that you would get with a native app, but we would only have to write the app just once. And then we would be able to launch it on Android and on the iOS stores. And then that basically cuts your development time in half, really having to do that. And also greatly reduces your the maintenance as far as keeping the apps up.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was totally the question I had, because I was like, well, I know a lot of people only develop for one, either iOS or Android, and then they don't do the other right away. So I guess my question with that is there major differences between the process in getting into the App Store and all that kind of stuff? What did you have to watch a bunch of YouTube videos, or did you already know how to do this? And what are key things that someone should know if they wanted to try to get an app out there?
Yes. So I'm a software engineer by trade. So, I'm actually a freelance app developer. I work with companies to develop apps and get them to market and things like that. So I actually had a background in the field, and I had actually gone to school, like college, for software, computer engineering specifically. But I've worked with in my time a lot of people that are kind of self-made software engineers. They were just a guy or gal that just started watching YouTube videos, looking around on websites like GitHub for open source projects to consider and to contribute to. And they slowly but surely built up a rather impressive resume, and they're doing very well for themselves right now. Although that isn't exactly it. It's the steeper road to go, because a lot of people get really stuck on the whole degree thing. But really, once you if you go that road, the self-taught approach, you can really do pretty well for yourself once you kind of get your foot in the door with someone that you can kind of put on your portfolio as far as your app goes. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so what are some of the hardest parts about development, and how do you get yourself unstuck if you're in a place where you're like, I don't know how to move forward?
Right. So I guess the hardest part about development, at least as a software engineer, is as engineers, we can oftentimes, like I guess really like anybody, you get excited about new projects or new possibilities. And during those initial phases of being all kind of juiced up and excited about launching an app, you have to make sure you pump the brakes heavy, and you pause, and you make sure you kind of properly scope out the architecture of the software application. So with that said, like say with Alosha, one of the things, this was like kind of a little bit earlier on during our process, and I'll try to kind of speak through our experience developing Alosha, was I didn't really architect as well as I could have, in the initial launch of Alosha, the layout for how the code base within the app would be organized. Because when you really, it's kind of a little bit, you can't really just compare app development to, like, say, building a house, because houses are pretty standard and custom. Software is very custom, but if you have a really well thought out architecture, it removes a lot of the variables for you. When you actually get ready to go, you just, have to make sure you don't get too excited and you just go willy nilly, just going crazy at your keyboard, just hacking away. So that was one of the things that I know we learned, or specifically I learned, was a big one, is just make sure before you start working on that app, you have a pretty good plan from your technical side. And also from the business side as well, and making sure you've properly scoped out, your, I guess I'll call them sales funnels, but I think our use case might be called something a little bit different with the whole two-sided market approach we've got. But make sure you've kind of already got your sales funnels, like, okay, how frequent are you going to send off a push notification to remind people to, upload their artwork? What type of blog posts are you going to accompany with your app to kind of, demonstrate how you can actually help people? How are you going to educate people on how your app's going to, help their new and aspiring artist career? It's like one of the things I think I know because I'm an engineer, that I personally have kind of come up, things you learn as you go in business is that, especially in a startup, you have to spend half your time in marketing and then the other half in development. And if you're someone like me, you're more of a developer type. The saying, to the hammer, everything looks like a nail. Well, that's not a problem with getting the message out. I just need to add a new feature because, I'm just good with the hammer, and that's just what I like to use. And you have to be very balanced with it. But
Yeah. So I kind of get this picture of like you just like a kid on Christmas Day ripping open presents and then just off to the races, like so excited about whatever you're doing. Yeah. So I love that you said like you just kind of have to have that all prepared and kind of have an idea of what you're doing and what you're working towards. So kind of a question to tie into that is when you are talking about like the actual launching the app, can you launch an app that's still under development and then kind of tweak it along the way? Or is there a specific level of readiness that it has to pass before you can actually move forward with the launch?
Yes. So you technically, when you launch an app, it is really still in development. And maybe a lot of people, sometimes developers might not want to admit this, but you don't truly know your app works until it hits production. And when we say production, that means it's live in the app store and it's in people's hands, and we're getting a good handle on what type of errors are getting thrown, and why aren't people being able to get to certain pages in the app. And that's really the biggest thing about launching it. And I know any other app developer will tell you this, it's always easier to get the app into the Android store than it is the Apple store. Apple is like really persnickety about, launching apps in their app stores, and there's all types of extra requirements you have to jump through in order to get it through the process. But really, one of the things in more recent times that I've started to do, and anybody listening to this podcast, it probably would help them, is to see if the earlier in the phase you can try to make an attempt to put your app in the app store, the better, because I know it usually takes, maybe for Apple, it might take about 2 weeks to, get it into the app store. And I know recently, I had a little bit of a scare with the app store when I developed an app for someone, and Apple was claiming that, the subscription feature that we had didn't count as a subscription. Now, as it would turn out, Apple was incorrect, and I had to send a summary email explaining how the subscription qualifies to be classified as an in-app subscription. But for a split second, I was sitting there panicked, like, oh my God, I have built an app that doesn't qualify to be for subscription services. Meanwhile, the Google Play Store had already accepted the app and it was live and everything. But I was like, really sweating bullets over on the iOS side of things, trying to push it through to its app store. But that's probably one of the best advice I can kind of come up with for your listeners, is the sooner you can, even if the app isn't air quote done, throwing up my air quotes here, the sooner you can get it published to the app store, the better. And then, you can just have updates week after week after that to just, get it through. Just maybe not market it so much during those initial phases before it's, truly done, but just get it into the app store, basically as early as possible, and then market, the app once it's actually, once, it's fully deployed and all the features are developed.
Yeah.
That is so good.
Oh, my other question was because I've heard this from somebody else that we interviewed. They said, I used to be in app development and then I got out of it because it was so much risk. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, okay, so that's my question for you. What happens if an app store changes a requirement? And what does that do to your app?
Right. Well, it'll kill you, app. Is what it'll do.
Yikes.
It will. I have been fortunate to not have an app killed like that. But it is something that, you are rolling the dice. It is actually because of the nature, of the app stores, and you're just at the mercy of Google and Apple and how they feel about you and your app.
Isn't that the truth? Oh man.
Yeah, it really is. And it's of one of the app development services that you do. It is a lot more risky than, say, web development, because web is, everything's open. Anybody can get a web server and just spin up whatever they want, grab a domain, and just go about their business. Now, when you're on Apple and Google's Play Store, you're really subject to their rules, their laws and everything. And say, like in my case, the risk I almost had a near disaster on this project with the in-app subscriptions, and finding out I was able to talk my way out of that one. But sometimes I've heard stories of people weren't able to, and Apple was just stuck in their ways and they didn't want to see it any other way. So it is risky. And, sometimes I've had to tell people that, I wouldn't take on a project. I've turned down projects because the risk was too much involved, because I felt that the permissions that the app was asking for was a little bit too pervasive, and I had just a good feeling. Android probably would have been okay with it on their store, but, Apple, I'm almost certain would have shut that down. Almost certain they would have.
Okay, well, we're kind of getting close to time here. I thought of a pun while you were talking, and I just wanted to say it. I was thinking, I guess you kind of have to play by their rules. Get
Pretty
it?
much. Yeah, no, I'm down with
Google
that.
Play, get it?
Play.
Okay.
That
Anyways,
was
but
so bad.
thank
I
you.
could
Thank
not even have laughed at that.
It's cool. It's funny because I guess how corny it is. It's just,
It's like when you have to jump through all their hoops, you either laugh or you cry. So,
it's a choice. It's a choice. And I choose to laugh at, all of the hoops that I've had to jump through with the app stores through the years. It's been fun. It's a good challenge. I like challenges. It's definitely the uphill road. And it's always really good you feel really good about, say, with Alosha and the UI design, the effort I put in. You feel really good kind of giving birth to an idea when you publish it on the App Store for the world to use. It feels good.
Absolutely. Okay. So it's been so cool to learn from you. And I know you have, like, I was just thinking the whole time, I was like, man, this guy is so smart. And he has, like, just been through so much experience. And I don't know, it's just cool to hear from you. So give us some tools and resources as, like, anybody who wanted to start app development or something. Like, what was really helpful for you, and what websites or YouTube videos or podcasts, even, what was helpful for you?
Okay, yes. So my preferred toolbox for app development is this framework basically built by Google called Flutter. It's a hybrid framework. It's stable. It's really popular, and a lot of other people use it, and it has a nice community built around it. So that's what I know for the most part. But there's other hybrid frameworks out there. I think as a general crux to get started, I would suggest users probably get started building native Android apps, and then from there potentially transition into a hybrid app platform. So basically that would mean that you would be building an Android app in either Java, that's a programming language, or Kotlin, and you can find an incredible wealth of YouTube videos online. No specific channels in particular to have in mind, because there's just so many just really rock star developers out there just uploading, YouTube videos at a rapid clip. So, and just start there and become really strong on like one platform. And then from there, start to acquire the skills to understand a hybrid platform. You know, a hybrid platform is really, it lets you build for not just Android, but also for iOS. But it gives you that toolbox to be able to sell your services to people that, you know, need both apps. And then from there, it's just a matter of, you know, you'll have to watch a lot of YouTube videos. It'll be very frustrating during those early stages. And if you like, you know, there are a lot of kind of software developer schools that, as opposed to say someone like me, you go to 4-year university, when technically to do what I do now, I probably only needed about a year or two. You know, there's like programs that are like that actually will teach you how to do app development for Android or iOS or maybe both, and kind of give you the skills necessary and send you off into the world. There's various ones. None of them are really coming to me off the top of my mind. But that's like one of the quickest ways to kind of get into the app development game. Is just that if you're going to do, whether it's self-taught, which, you know, following the whole YouTube videos and just playing around, you have an idea and you just want to get in there and tinker. You know, that's the biggest thing about getting into the app development. It's very specific, you know, the process, and you have to be very detail oriented. But as long as you're having fun, you can do it. You just have to have fun. That's the catch. It's going to be very frustrating at times, but just figure out whatever it is, however you figure it out how to do it. Just make sure you're having fun, and you can do it. You can actually do it.
Okay. Well, we're going to transition into our Gawk portion. Thank you so much for giving us those resources. I'd never even heard of Flutter, so I'm excited about that. So our Gawk today, you have a story you wanted to share with us about fatherhood, and I'm really excited.
Yeah. So I'm a relatively I guess young dad. I'm about 28, and I actually have I have 2 sons and a daughter on the way. And
oh, that's so exciting! Congratulations!
Thank you. Yeah. She'll be here. I think July. I think late July is the expected date. I don't think we have an exact day yet, but it's like late July is when she's supposed to be here. But my wife and I, we talk from time to time. You know, the kids sometimes they they get hurt and things like that, or they'll be panicked about stuff. And I might not react all that much. I was like, oh, you're all right. Just go down to the sink, put some water in your eye, you be good and stuff.
Rub some dirt in it.
Rub some dirt in it, right? Rub some dirt in it. Although my father never told me that, but I've had other friends' fathers tell them that, like literally rub some dirt in it. But it reminded me, we were talking, I was like, you know what, honey, I think you're right. Cause I was telling her about this time I went to my father, he took me to the beach, and I'm just out there, a little kid. I couldn't have been no taller than maybe 3 feet or something. For some reason, I wasn't like kind of a little bit farther out there. I guess, I call myself having an adventure. You're a little kid, everything has to be an adventure. And, and I remember I'm just sitting there playing, and all of a sudden I just see a shadow kind of behind me. And as I'm looking over my shoulder, I see it's a wave, for whatever reason. I don't know where this wave came from. And I'm a little guy at the time. And then the wave comes over and it just whoosh, just kind of hits me. And I'm kind of just underwater, just spinning for like maybe a few seconds. It feels like forever, But at the time, I didn't know how to swim. And, when that wave hits you, you're just spinning underwater, just trying to figure out, okay, which way is up and which way is down. Eventually, I get up and I'm coming over to my dad. He's on the beach under an umbrella, just reading a book. He has no idea his son just drowned and stuff. And and he was like, hey, and I'm over there just like, hey, when you're a kid, you're panicked, you're babbling. You just, blah, 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 blah. He was like, he looked at me, he just grinned, and he was like, oh, you having a good time, son? And I was just, thinking about it. That's the type of stuff that I do right now with my children. They be having meltdowns, and I just be looking at them like, you having a good time, sons? Because, I swear, maybe it's a dad complex or something, but man, we do be clueless.
You're like, as a kid, you don't even know that I almost died.
Right, I don't know. I almost died. He just over there grinning, just having a nice little Sunday afternoon on the beach and stuff. And, Yeah, and I ain't gonna lie, as a kid, you sometimes hold stuff against your father and stuff, but as you become an adult and you start to pick up on things, it's like, dang, man, I ain't that much better.
Develop a certain level of compassion and understanding.
Right. These are
Yeah.
things to work on. We're always working to self-improve and stuff. And you're just like, yeah, I got to do better there.
Oh man. Well, this has been so fun. Thank you so much, Mark and Tariq, for joining us this week. Next week, you guys, we have another episode with them. We're going to be talking about how to promote an app. We're going to hear a little bit more from both Mark and Tariq, a little bit heavier on the Mark side. He'll have more to say about that. So if you want to tune in next week, and also just check out Alosha on the
On the App Store. Yeah.
yeah, on the App Store, on Apple or on Android devices. And then if you liked what you heard today, then share our podcast with a friend.